Corporal Kim Tae-ho stood at attention in the grand hallway of the Imperial Palace. His black uniform was perfect. Every button shined. His boots reflected the crystal lights above. He had spent 3 years fighting pirates in the outer systems. He had earned medals for bravery. Now he was here on Vega Prime, the most important world in the galaxy. The hallway stretched longer than a football field. The walls were made of white stone that seemed to glow from within. Alien artwork hung between tall windows. Strange creatures from 100 worlds moved through the corridor. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated in the air. Few rolled on wheels they had grown from their bodies. Tae-ho kept his eyes forward. He was proud to be chosen for palace duty. Only the best soldiers got assignments here. His commanding officer had told him he would be protecting important people. Maybe he would guard ambassadors. Maybe he would stand watch over secret meetings that decided the fate of worlds. Corporal Kim Tae-ho, the voice came from a tall blue alien with 4 arms. Each arm held a different electronic pad. You will follow me. Tae-ho followed the alien through corridor after corridor. They passed gardens where purple trees grew in perfect rows. They walked by rooms filled with beings having quiet conversations in languages he did not understand. The palace was bigger than some cities on Earth. Finally, they stopped at a door made of silver metal. The alien pressed one of its hands against the door. It opened without a sound. The High Chamberlain will speak with you now, the alien said. Tae-ho walked into a round room with a dome ceiling. The walls showed moving pictures of space. Stars and planets slowly turned in an endless dance. At the center of the room sat a creature that looked like it was made of light and shadow mixed together. I am High Chamberlain Veltar, said. Its voice sounded like wind through leaves. You are here for a special assignment. Yes, sir, Tae-ho replied. He kept his posture straight. The Empress has a companion, a creature from the world called Verdun. This companion has become lazy and fat. It sleeps all day. It eats too much. The Empress wants this creature to be strong again. Tae-ho felt confused, but did not show it on his face. What kind of creature, sir? The locals call them. They look similar to the wolves from your Earth, but larger, much larger. This one is named Baram. A hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed a wolf-like animal the size of a small horse. Its fur was silver and black. Its eyes were bright blue. But even in the picture, Tae-ho could see that the creature looked soft and lazy. Its belly was round from too much food. Your job is to make this creature healthy and strong again. You will live in the palace. You will train Baram every day. You will make sure it eats proper food and gets enough exercise. Tae-ho stared at the hologram. This was not what he had expected. He had thought he would be guarding diplomats or fighting enemies. Instead, he was going to be a trainer for the Empress's pet. Sir, may I ask why a human soldier was chosen for this task? The High Chamberlain's form shifted slightly. Humans are known for their discipline. Other species have tried to help Baram, but they always give up. They let the creature do what it wants. Humans do not give up so easily. I understand, sir. You will start tomorrow. Your quarters are in the East Wing. Your uniform and equipment are already there. Do not disappoint the Empress. I will not, sir. Tae-ho was led to his new room by another alien, this one with green skin and 6 legs. The room was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. It had a soft bed, a desk, and a window that looked out over the palace gardens. His new uniforms hung in a closet. They were dark green instead of his usual black. That evening, Tae-ho ate dinner in the palace cafeteria. The room was filled with guards and servants from dozens of different worlds. Most ignored him, but a few stared. He heard whispers in languages he could not understand, but he recognized the tone. They were talking about him. A group of reptilian guards at the next table spoke in basic, the common language of the galaxy. One of them said, "Look at the human. He thinks he is so important." Another replied, "Wait until he meets Baram. That lazy beast will not listen to anyone. The human will be crying to go home in a week." They all made a hissing sound that Tae-ho knew was laughter. Tae-ho finished his meal and returned to his room. He looked out the window at the gardens below. In the distance, he could see the lights of the capital city stretching to the horizon. Millions of beings from hundreds of worlds lived and worked there. This palace was the center of the largest government the galaxy had ever known, and he was here to train a lazy wolf. He opened his personal communicator and recorded a message for his family back on Earth. "Hello, Mother. I have arrived safely. At my new assignment, I cannot tell you much about it, but I am well. The palace is amazing. I will write again soon." The next morning, Taeho put on his green uniform and followed directions to the Imperial Gardens. He walked through gates made of gold metal and into a space that looked like a perfect forest. Real grass grew under his feet. Real trees provided shade, but he knew this was all artificial. Created inside the palace for the comfort of creatures who missed their home worlds, at the center of the garden was a small building made of white stone. A sign in several languages said Baram's Rest, Taeho. Knocked on the door, no answer. He opened the door and stepped inside. The building was one large room filled with soft cushions and blankets. In the center of all the comfort, on a bed bigger than most human beds, lay the largest wolf Taeho had ever seen. Baram was even bigger than the hologram had shown. His silver and black fur was clean and beautiful, but his body was soft and round. His breathing was slow and deep. Around him were bowls of half-eaten food that smelled rich and expensive. Baram Taeho said in a firm voice. One blue eye opened and looked at him. Then it closed again. "Baram, I am Corporal Kim Taeho. I am here to train you." Both eyes opened this time. The great wolf lifted his head and looked at Taeho with an expression that seemed to say, "Go away, small human." "I am sleeping." Taeho stood straighter. He had faced pirates with laser weapons. He had fought in zero gravity. He had survived 3 years of combat in space. He would not be defeated by one lazy wolf, no matter how big it was. "We start training today," he said. "Get up." Baram put his head back down and closed his eyes. This was going to be harder than Taeho had thought. The next morning, Taeho arrived at Baram's building with a plan. He had studied wolf behavior all night, using the palace computer system. He knew that wolves were pack animals. They needed leadership. They needed structure. Baram was still sleeping. On his giant bed, "Good morning, Baram," Taeho said loudly. "Time for breakfast." The wolf opened one eye, saw Taeho, and rolled over to face the wall. Taeho walked to the food bowls scattered around the room. They were filled with different colored chunks that smelled like expensive meat. He picked up all the bowls and carried them outside. "If you want breakfast, you come outside," he called back into the building. He waited for 10 minutes. Nothing happened. Taeho went back inside. Baram had not moved. The wolf was pretending to sleep, but Taeho could see one ear twitching. Baram was listening to everything. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way," Taeho said. "But we are going to do this." He found a rope in a storage closet and made a simple collar. Baram was too big to force, but maybe he could encourage him to move. He slipped the rope around the wolf's thick neck. Baram opened both eyes and gave Taeho a look that would have frozen fire. "Come on, big guy, just a little walk." Baram stood up slowly. He was even more massive when standing. His head came up to Taeho's chest. But instead of walking forward, he sat down and would not move. For 2 hours, they had a battle of wills. Taeho pulled gently on the rope. Baram sat like a statue. Other palace workers walked by and watched. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. Finally, Taeho gave up for the day. He brought the food bowls back inside and watched Baram eat. The wolf ate slowly, like he was tasting fine wine. Each bite was careful and thoughtful. "You are smarter than you look," Taeho said. "This is not just about being lazy, is it?" Baram glanced at him but kept eating. That evening, Taeho sat in the palace library reading about Verdania, Baram's home world. What he found made him sad and angry at the same time. Verdania had been a beautiful forest planet. The Lupins lived in large packs, hunting together and protecting their territory. They were known for their intelligence and loyalty. But 10 years ago, the planet had been destroyed in a war. The forests burned. The oceans turned to poison. Almost all the Lupins died. Baram was one of only 12 survivors. The next morning, Taeho tried a different approach. Instead of forcing Baram to exercise, he sat down on the grass outside the building and waited. "I know about Verdania," he said quietly. "I know about your family." Baram's ears moved slightly. "I know you are not just lazy. I think you are sad." but staying in bed will not bring them back. The wolf came to the doorway, but did not come outside. My grandfather was a soldier in a war on Earth, Tejo continued. He lost his whole unit in one battle. All his friends died. When he came home, he did not want to do anything. He just sat in his room. Baram took one step outside, but my grandmother made him get up every day. She made him work in her garden. She said that life was for living, not for hiding. Baram walked slowly to where Tejo was sitting. The huge wolf sat down next to him. They sat in silence for a long time. "We start small," Tejo said. "Just a walk around the garden. Nothing." Hard Baram looked at him with those bright blue eyes. Then he stood up and walked a few steps forward. It was not much, but it was a beginning. Over the next week, Tejo and Baram walked together every morning. At first, they only went to the fountain in the center of the garden. Then they walked to the edge of the garden. Then they walked around the entire garden once. Baram never walked fast, but he walked, and every day he seemed a little more alert, a little more interested in the world around him. Other palace workers started to notice. The reptilian guards who had laughed at Tejo now watched with interest. Some of them even placed bets on how long it would take for Baram to run. "The human is patient," one of them said. "I did not think humans could be so patient." Captain Lee Sojin arrived on the 10th day. She was Tejo's old commanding officer from the war against the pirates. She was a small woman, but every soldier in the fleet respected her. "Corporal Kim," she said when she found him in the garden with Baram, "this is your important assignment. Walking a lazy dog. He is not a dog captain, and he is not lazy." Sojin looked at Baram, who was lying in the shade of a tree. "He looks lazy to me." "Watch this," Tejo said. He walked to a puzzle box that was used to feed small animals in the garden. It had 7 different locks that had to be opened in the right order. He placed it on the ground near Baram. "Baram, can you open this?" The wolf looked at the box. Then he stood up and examined it. Carefully, using his nose and paws, he opened all 7 locks in less than 2 minutes. Sojin's mouth fell open. How did he do that? Lupins are very intelligent, maybe more intelligent than humans, but everyone treats him like a pet. Baram picked up the treats from inside the box and ate them slowly. Then he looked at Sojin as if to say, "Did you think I was stupid?" "The Empress wants him to be strong," Tejo continued. "But I think she also wants him to be happy, and you cannot be strong if you are not happy." Sojin nodded slowly. "You are learning things here that they do not teach in military school." That afternoon, Tejo decided to try something new. Instead of walking on the garden paths, he led Baram into the artificial forest area. The trees were tall, and the paths were narrow. It was more like Baram's natural home. As soon as they entered the forest, Baram changed. His head came up. His ears pointed forward. He began to move with purpose, instead of just following Tejo. "This is what you miss, is not it?" Tejo said. "The forest, the hunt." Baram stopped and looked at him. For the first time, the wolf's eyes seemed truly alive. They walked deeper into the forest. Baram began to move faster. His nose tested the air. His feet made no sound on the forest floor. This was how lupins were supposed to move. When they came to a small stream, Baram jumped across it easily. When they found a fallen tree blocking the path, he climbed over it without help. He was still overweight and out of shape, but his natural abilities were starting to show. "Tomorrow we run," Tejo said as they walked back to Baram's building. Baram looked at him and made a sound that was almost like agreement. That night, Tejo wrote in his personal journal, Day 10. Baram walked 2 kilometers today without stopping. He solved a complex puzzle in under 2 minutes. He is beginning to trust me. More importantly, he is beginning to remember who he used to be. Outside his window, the palace lights twinkled like stars. But Tejo was not thinking about the palace or the Empress or his unusual assignment. He was thinking about a lonely wolf who was learning to live again, and he was proud of the small part he was playing in that healing. 3 weeks into his assignment, Tejo made a discovery that changed everything. He was in the palace archives looking for more information about lupin training methods. The computer system held millions of files from thousands of worlds. Most were in languages he could not read, but the translation software helped him understand the basic meanings. He found a file marked Verdania Incident Classified. His security clearance let him open it. What he read made his hands shake. Verdania had not just been destroyed in a war. It had been destroyed by accident. A mining company had been drilling deep into the planet looking for rare metals. They hit a pocket of unstable gas. The explosion cracked the planet's crust. Volcanoes erupted everywhere, the atmosphere filled with poison clouds. The Lupins had 3 days to evacuate their world. Most packs chose to stay and die together rather than leave their home. Only a few young Lupins were forced onto escape ships by their elders. Baram had been just a cub. He watched his world die from space. The file also contained a video message. Tejo played it and saw a younger version of Empress Yarnell standing in a refugee camp. She was holding a small wolf cub with silver and black fur and bright blue eyes. "This is Baram," her voice said in the recording. "He is the youngest survivor of Verdania. I will take care of him personally. He will want for nothing." The video ended. Tejo sat back in his chair and thought about what this meant. The Empress had tried to help Baram by giving him everything he could want: food, comfort, safety. But she had not understood that Lupins needed more than comfort. They needed purpose. The next morning, Tejo found Baram waiting for him outside the building. This was new. Usually the wolf had to be coaxed out of bed, ready for our run, Tejo asked. Baram made a low sound that Tejo had learned meant yes. Jogged through the gardens together, Baram was getting stronger every day. His breathing was better. His steps were lighter. But Tejo could see that something was still missing. Dr. Park Hai-1 arrived that afternoon. She was a human scientist who studied alien biology. Captain Sojin had asked her to come and help with Baram's training. "I have studied Lupins for 10 years, Dr. Park told Tejo as they watched Baram rest under a tree. "They are pack hunters. Everything they do is about working together with their family." "But Baram's pack is gone," Tejo said. "Yes, and that is the problem. You are doing good work getting him physically healthy. But his mind needs healing too." Dr. Park opened her bag and took out several objects. There was a device that made sounds like Lupin pack calls. There was a scent marker that smelled like Verdanian forests. There was a small stone from Baram's homeworld. "These might help him remember the good times, not just the sad ones," she said. That evening, Tejo tried using the sound device. When he played the pack calls, Baram's whole body changed. His ears stood up straight. His tail moved slightly. He made soft sounds back to the device. "You remember, do not you?" Tejo said. "You remember running with your pack." Baram came closer and put his big head against Tejo's shoulder. It was the first time the wolf had shown real affection. Next day, Tejo decided to try something bold. Instead of their usual walk, he led Baram to a part of the palace gardens he had never seen before. It was called the training ground, and it was used by palace guards to practice combat skills. The area had obstacles, targets, and obstacles courses. But more importantly, it had space to run. "Want to try a hunt simulation?" Tejo asked. He had programmed one of the training computers to create a course that was like hunting on Verdania. There were holographic prey animals. There were scent trails to follow. There were obstacles that required jumping and climbing. Baram looked at the course and then at Tejo. His blue eyes seemed to ask, "Are you sure?" "I am sure. Show me what Lupins can really do." Baram entered the course slowly at first. But as soon as the first holographic deer appeared, something wild and beautiful happened. The lazy, overweight pet disappeared. In his place was a predator that moved like liquid shadow. Baram tracked the scent trail perfectly. He anticipated where the prey would go. He jumped over obstacles without slowing down. He used the terrain to hide his approach. It's when he reached the target, he moved so fast that Tejo could barely follow with his eyes. The simulation ended. Baram stood panting but proud. His whole body language was different. For the first time since Tejo had met him, Baram looked like he belonged. To himself, "That was incredible," Tejo said. "How do you feel?" Baram walked over and sat next to Tejo. Then he did something unexpected. He gently took Tejo's hand in his mouth and held it. Not biting, just holding. It was how young Lupins showed trust to their pack leaders. Word about Baram's performance spread quickly through the palace. Guards and servants came to watch his training sessions. Even some minor ambassadors requested to see the transformed wolf. Ambassador Chen Walming was one of them. He was a diplomat from Earth who worked with the Galactic Council. Remarkable, he said after watching Bahram complete another hunt simulation. The Empress chose well when she assigned a human to this task. Why do you say that? Tejo asked. Humans have a gift for seeing potential in others. Other species might have accepted that Bahram was lazy and left him alone. Humans do not accept limits so easily. That night, Tejo was writing his daily report when his door chimed. He opened it to find High Chamberlain Veltar waiting outside. The Empress wishes to see you, the creature said. Te-Ho had never spoken directly to the Empress. He had only seen her from a distance during ceremonies. He followed Veltar through corridors he had never seen before, deeper into the palace than he had ever been. They stopped at a door made of crystal that seemed to hold captured starlight. The door opened silently. The Empress's private chamber was not what Tejo had expected. It was small and simple. The walls showed images of space, but they were not moving. They were still pictures of beautiful nebulae and distant stars. Empress Yaranel sat at a simple desk. She looked older than in the video he had seen, but her eyes were the same. They were eyes that had seen too much sadness. Sit, Corporal Kim, she said. Her voice was soft, not cold like he had expected. Your Majesty, Tejo said, sitting carefully. I have been watching your work with Bahram. The reports are encouraging. He is a remarkable animal, Your Majesty, very intelligent. The Empress was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I saved him because I could not save the others. Do you understand? Tejo thought about his answer carefully. I think so, Your Majesty. You wanted to give him a good life. I wanted to keep him safe. But I think I kept him safe. I made him soft because I was afraid of losing him too. He is not soft anymore, Your Majesty. He is becoming strong again. Yes, and that is because of you. You gave him something I could not. What is that, Your Majesty? The Empress smiled slightly. You treated him like what he was, not like what I wanted him to be. You saw a warrior and trained a warrior. I saw a victim and created a victim. Tejo felt uncomfortable with the praise. I just followed my training, Your Majesty, discipline and structure. No, Corporal, you did more than that. You gave him back his dignity. As Tejo walked back to his quarters that night, he thought about the Empress's words. He had come to this assignment thinking it was punishment, a waste of his skills and training. But now he understood that it might be the most important work he had ever done. He was not just training a wolf. He was helping to heal a broken heart. 2 months after beginning Bahram's training, Tejo woke to the sound of alarms screaming through the palace. He jumped from his bed and put on his uniform quickly. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Palace guards ran past his door, carrying weapons. Something was very wrong. Tejo ran to Bahram's building. The wolf was already awake and alert. His ears pointed toward the sounds of shouting and running feet. What is happening? Palace security is responding to a threat. Stay where you are. Bahram followed him without being asked. They found Commander Yoon in the main security center. She was a tough woman with gray hair and scars on her face from old battles. Screens around the room showed different parts of the palace. Corporal Kim, you should be in your quarters, she said without looking away from the screens. What is the situation, Commander? Terrorists. They got past our outer defenses somehow. 3 groups of them are moving through the palace. They are heading for the throne room. On one screen, Tejo could see figures in black armor moving through a corridor. They carried energy weapons and moved like trained soldiers. How many? Tejo asked. 12 total. My security teams are trying to stop them, but they know the palace layout too well. Someone helped them plan this. Bahram moved to the screens and studied them carefully. His nose twitched as if he was trying to smell something. Commander Tejo said, Bahram might be able to help. A pet wolf. How he is not a pet, he is a hunter, and his senses are much better than ours. Commander Yoon looked at Bahram doubtfully. But then another alarm sounded. On the screens, they could see that one group of terrorists had reached the residential wing where many ambassadors lived. What can he do? She asked. Tejo looked at Bahram. Can you track them? Can you find them? By scent. Bahram made a low growling sound and moved toward the door. You are not armed. Commander Yoon handed him a pulse rifle. Do not make me regret this. Tejo and Bahram left the security center and moved through the palace corridors. Baram's nose stayed close to the floor. He was following scent trails that Tejo could not detect. They found the first group of terrorists in the art gallery. 3 figures in black armor were placing explosive devices on the walls. They wanted to destroy the palace's most precious treasures. Tejo signaled for Baram to circle around behind them. The wolf moved silently through the shadows between the art displays. "Drop your weapons," he shouted. The terrorists spun toward him, raising their guns, but they did not see Baram until it was too late. His powerful jaws clamped on the 3rd terrorist's weapon arm. "Tejo, impossible, Commander," Yun replied. "My teams have not even found them yet." "Baram found them? Where are the other groups?" Over the next hour, Tejo and Baram hunted the remaining terrorists through the palace. Baram's nose led them through corridors and rooms that security cameras could not see. The wolf's natural hunting instincts, combined with months of training, Baram and Tejo worked as a team. The wolf would find the enemies and get into position. Tejo would confront them and force them to react. Then Baram would attack from an unexpected direction. When it was over, all 12 terrorists were captured. None had been seriously hurt, but they were completely defeated. Commander Yun met them in the throne room after the last group was taken away. "I owe you an apology, Corporal," she said. "I thought your assignment was a joke. I was wrong." She looked at Baram, who was sitting calmly beside Tejo. "And I owe you an apology to Baram. You are not a pet, you are a guardian." News of the attack spread quickly through the palace and beyond. Within hours, reporters from across the galaxy were asking about the miracle wolf who had helped save the Imperial Palace. But Tejo was not thinking about fame. He was thinking about how Baram had known exactly what to do without being told. They had worked together like a real team, like partners. That evening, Lieutenant Colonel Ominsu arrived from Earth. He was Tejo's commanding officer from the military, and he had come with new orders. "Corporal Kim," he said as they sat, "in Tejo's quarters, your service here has been noted at the highest levels. We want to promote you to sergeant and transfer you to lead a special operations team. And Baram the wolf stays here, of course. Your job with him is finished." Tejo was quiet for a long time. 3 months ago, he would have jumped at the chance for promotion and an elite assignment. But now things were different. "Sir, I request permission to stay and continue my current assignment." Lieutenant Colonel O looked surprised. "This is a chance to advance your career, Corporal. Why would you want to stay here as a pet trainer?" "Because Baram is not a pet, sir. He is my partner. The wolf is healthy and strong now." Tejo thought about how to explain. "Sir, what we did today was just the beginning. But he needs someone who understands him, someone he trusts. The palace has its own security forces." "Yes, sir, but they do not have a Lupin. And after today, I think the Empress might need all the protection she can get." Lieutenant Colonel O studied Tejo's face. "You have changed, Corporal. 3 months ago, you were focused only on your military career. 3 months ago, I did not understand what duty really meant, sir." Tejo did not know what they discussed, but that afternoon he received new orders. He was promoted to sergeant and assigned permanently to the Imperial Palace as special security advisor. His job was to develop new protection methods using Baram's unique abilities. When Tejo told Baram about the new assignment, the wolf did something he had never done before. He wagged his tail. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. It meant that Baram was not just surviving anymore. He was happy. And for the first time since arriving at the palace, Tejo was happy too. 6 months after the terrorist attack, life at the palace had settled into a new routine. Tejo worked with Commander Yun to train security teams. Baram had become an official member of the Palace Guard. They practiced together every day. New ways to use his natural abilities to protect the palace, but on a cold morning in winter, everything changed again. Te-Ho was in the security center reviewing patrol routes when urgent messages began flooding in from across the galaxy. Admiral Zheng Haiyan-Wu of the 7th Fleet had declared himself the rightful ruler of the Galactic Empire. He claimed the Empress was too weak to lead and that he would bring order to the chaos. Half the galaxy's military forces had joined his rebellion. The other half remained loyal to the Empress. It was civil war. "How long before Zheng's forces reach Vega Prime?" Tejo asked Commander Yun. 3 days, maybe 4, she replied, studying tactical displays. He has 200 ships heading this way, and our defenses, 50 ships and the planetary defense grid. We are outnumbered 4 to 1. General Kwak Dong-min appeared on the main communication screen. He was Young's military commander, a man known for his cruelty and ambition. Citizens of the Imperial Palace, his voice echoed through every speaker in the building. I offer you one chance to surrender. Give us the false Empress, and no one will be harmed. You have 24 hours to decide. The transmission ended. The security center was silent. He will not keep that promise, Commander Yoon said quietly. Jung wants to eliminate everyone who might challenge his rule. Over the next day, the palace prepared for siege. Weapons were distributed, barriers were erected. Plans were made for evacuating non-essential personnel. But Taeho noticed something troubling. Many of the alien guards and servants were afraid. Some were packing their belongings. A few had already left the palace. They do not believe we can win, he told Baram as they walked through the gardens. And maybe they are right. Baram walked beside him silently. The wolf had been tense all day, sensing the fear and uncertainty around them. That evening, Taeho was called to an emergency. Meeting in the throne room, the Empress sat on her crystal throne, but she looked smaller than usual. Around her stood the remaining loyal commanders and ambassadors. The situation is grave, she said. Jung's forces will arrive tomorrow. Our fleet cannot hold them for long. Major Han Yujin, the commander of the palace's ground forces, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have enough soldiers to defend the palace for perhaps 6 hours. After that, ... He did not need to finish the sentence. There is another option, Ambassador Chen Weiming said carefully. We could negotiate. Perhaps Jung would accept exile instead of execution. No, the Empress said firmly. I will not abandon my duty to save my life. Taeho looked around the room at the worried faces. These were brave people, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Unless something changed, they would all die tomorrow. Then he had an idea. Your Majesty, he said, stepping forward, may I suggest something? The Empress nodded. Jung's forces expect a traditional battle, ships against ships, soldiers against soldiers. They do not expect something they have never seen before. What do you mean, Baram? Is not just one wolf. His species evolved to hunt in coordinated packs. What if we could give him a pack to lead? Commander Yoon looked confused. There are no other lupins here. No, Taeho agreed, but there are other creatures, other species with different abilities. What if we could train them to work together like a pack? The room was quiet as everyone considered this idea. It is possible, Dr. Park Haiwan said. She had remained at the palace to help with medical preparations. Many species have pack instincts. With the right coordination, ... How long would you need to organize this? The Empress asked. We have 18 hours before Jung's ground forces land, Taeho said. It will have to be enough. The next 18 hours were the busiest of Taeho's life. He and Baram worked with volunteers from a dozen different species. There were the reptilian guards with their natural armor. There were flying creatures from the cloud world of Nimbus. There were diggers from the underground cities of Mole Prime. Each species had different strengths. The key was teaching them. To work together, Baram was the perfect pack leader. His intelligence and natural instincts helped coordinate the diverse group. The other creatures seemed to understand him, even though they could not speak the same language. By dawn, they had a plan. Jung's ships arrived right on schedule. The space battle lasted exactly as long as expected. The loyal fleet fought bravely, but was overwhelmed. Jung's forces landed at the main spaceport and began marching toward the palace. General Kwak led the attack personally. He brought 5,000 soldiers in full combat armor. They moved in perfect formation across the palace grounds. They expected to face the palace's small security force in traditional combat. Instead, they walked into something they had never imagined. The attack began when the reptilian guards emerged from hidden tunnels behind Jung's forces. Their natural armor protected them from energy weapons as they struck at the rear guard. Then the flying creatures attacked from above, dropping small explosives and creating confusion in the ranks. The diggers had prepared surprise pits and obstacles that broke up the neat formations And through it all, Barum coordinated the attacks with howls and calls that the other creatures understood perfectly. Teho fought alongside his strange new pack. He had never experienced anything like it. Every member of the group knew where the others were. They moved together like parts of a single organism. General Quack's superior numbers meant nothing when his forces could not predict where the next attack would come from. His advanced weapons were useless when his enemies disappeared into tunnels and took to the air. The battle raged for hours. Slowly, Jung's forces were pushed back from the palace. Many surrendered rather than continue fighting an enemy they could not understand. When it was over, General Quack himself was captured trying to flee back to his ships, but the real victory was not military. It was what happened next. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. The story was not about superior weapons or tactics. It was about different species working together in perfect harmony. It was about an ancient wolf leading a pack made up of creatures from dozens of worlds. Within days, other worlds began requesting help organizing their own mixed-species defense forces. The idea of cooperation instead of competition began to spread. Admiral Jung's rebellion collapsed as his supporters realized they were fighting against something larger than politics. They were fighting against the future. That night, as Teho sat in the garden with Barum, he thought about how much had changed since his first day at the palace. "You did more than save the palace today," he told the wolf. "You showed everyone what we can do when we work together." Barum rested his huge head on Teho's shoulder. It was his way of saying that they were pack now. They were family, and that bond would never be broken. 1 year after the battle that saved the Imperial Palace, Sergeant Kim Teho stood before the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 300 worlds filled the great chamber. At his side sat Barum, now wearing an official collar that marked him as an Imperial Guardian. Counselor Li Yunbai called for attention. The Assembly recognizes Sergeant Kim Teho and Guardian Barum for their presentation on interspecies cooperation protocols. Teho stood and looked out at the hundreds of different beings in the audience. A year ago, he would have been nervous, speaking to such an important group. Now he felt calm. He had learned that the most important truths were often the simplest ones. "Honored representatives," he began, "1 year ago, I was given what seemed like an impossible task: train a lazy wolf to be strong again. I thought it was punishment for something I had done wrong." Soft laughter rippled through the assembly. Many of them had heard this story before, but they wanted to hear it again. "I was wrong about many things." Barum was not lazy. He was grieving. The task was not punishment. It was the most important assignment of my life. He gestured to Barum, who stood and looked calmly at the assembly. The wolf had grown even larger over the past year, but his size was matched by his dignity. What we learned together changed how we think about cooperation between species. We learned that every species has unique gifts. We learned that those gifts become stronger when they work together. Most importantly, we learned that understanding comes before strength. Counselor Li nodded approvingly. The Assembly has received reports from 47 worlds that have implemented interspecies defense cooperatives based on your model. The results have been remarkable. It was true. The battle at the palace had inspired a galaxy-wide movement. Worlds that had never trusted each other were now working together. The cooperation protocols developed by Teho and Barum were being taught at military academies across the galaxy. "We have also received a proposal from the Empress," Counselor Li continued. "She wishes to establish a permanent interspecies development corps with you as its director." The assembly erupted in discussions. Representatives whispered to each other in dozens of languages. This was exactly what many worlds had been hoping for. Te-Ho had known this offer was coming. The Empress had spoken to him about it weeks ago. It would mean leaving the palace and traveling across the galaxy. It would mean training thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. It would also mean leaving the home he had built with Barum. "The offer is generous," Teho said when the assembly grew quiet again. "But I must discuss it with my partner before giving an answer." He looked down at Barum. The wolf looked back with those bright blue eyes that had seen so much sorrow and joy. "What do you think, old friend? Ready for a new adventure?" Barum stood and walked to the center of the chamber floor. Every representative watched as he sat down and howled once, long and clear. It was the howl of a pack leader calling his family. To follow, the assembly burst into applause. 6 months later, Tejo and Baram stood on the landing platform of their ship, the Verdania. It was named in honor of Baram's lost homeworld, and it would be their home as they traveled from world to world. Their first stop was a mining planet, where tensions between humans and rock creatures had led to violence. Their second stop would be an ocean world where 3 different aquatic species could not agree on territorial boundaries. They would go wherever they were needed. They would teach what they had learned. They would show other beings that cooperation was stronger than competition. Ambassador Song Myung came to see them off. She had been appointed as the diplomatic liaison for the Interspecies Development Corps. The Council of Ministers on Titan specifically requested you for their next assignment, she told Tejo. They have 6 different species trying to share 1 space station, and it is not going well. Sounds familiar, Tejo said with a smile. Remember when everyone said Baram and I would never work together? Dr. Park Hai-1 was also there, along with Commander Yoon and many others who had become friends over the past year. But the most important person was the Empress herself. I want to thank you again, she said to both Tejo and Baram. You gave me back something I thought was lost forever. What was that, Your Majesty? Hope, she said simply. Hope that different kinds of beings can understand each other. Hope that the galaxy can be a place of cooperation instead of conflict. Handed Tejo a small crystal device. This contains the complete historical records of Verdania. Every story, every song, every piece of culture that survived the destruction. I think Baram would want other worlds to know about his people. Baram approached the Empress and gently touched her hand with his nose. It was his way of saying goodbye and thank you. As their ship lifted off from Vega Prime, Tejo stood at the window looking down at the Imperial Palace. He could see the gardens where he had first tried to make Baram walk. He could see the training ground where Baram had rediscovered his strength. Do you miss it? He asked the wolf. Baram came to stand beside him at the window. Then he did something that never failed to make Tejo smile. He wagged his tail. It meant no, he did not miss the palace. He was excited about what came next. Their first assignment was successful. The mining planet learned to use each species' natural abilities to make their work safer and more efficient. The humans' planning abilities, combined with the rock creatures' strength and the flying species' aerial reconnaissance, created a system that worked better than anyone had imagined. Their second assignment was even better. The ocean world's 3 species discovered that they could share territory by dividing it by depth instead of area. Each species preferred different depths anyway. Word of their successes spread quickly. Soon they had requests from hundreds of worlds. More ships were built. More teams were trained. The Interspecies Development Corps grew from 2 individuals to thousands. But Tejo and Baram remained the original team. They were the proof that the impossible was possible. 5 years after leaving the palace, they returned for a special ceremony. The Empress was establishing the Verdanian Memorial Corps, a permanent organization dedicated to preserving the cultures of destroyed worlds and helping survivors heal. The ceremony was held in the same garden where Tejo had first met Baram, but now the garden had a new section called the Memorial Grove. Trees from destroyed worlds grew there, tended by survivors who had found new purpose in keeping their cultures alive. At the center of the grove stood a statue. It showed a human soldier and a great wolf standing together, looking toward the stars. The inscription read, "In memory of those we have lost, in hope of those we might yet save." After the ceremony, Tejo and Baram walked through the palace one more time. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. Guards from dozens of species worked together seamlessly. The dining halls served food from hundreds of worlds. Children of different species played together in the corridors. "Look what you started," Tejo said to Baram as they stood in the throne room. "One lazy wolf who just needed someone to believe in him." Baram looked at him with an expression that seemed to say, "One stubborn human who would not give up." They were both right. That night, as they prepared to leave for their next assignment, Tejo made his final entry in the journal he had kept since his first day at the palace. Mission completed. Baram is no longer the lazy, depressed creature I first met. He is a leader, a teacher, and a symbol of hope for beings across the galaxy. But more than that, he is my friend. As for myself, I am no longer the soldier who thought his assignment was a punishment. I am a teacher, a bridge builder, and a believer in the power of understanding. The Empress was right when she said that humans have a gift for bringing out potential in others. But what I learned is that it works both ways. Bahram brought out potential in me that I never knew existed. Tomorrow, we go to the Spiral Arm Worlds to help settle a dispute between energy beings and crystal creatures. It should be interesting, but then again, every day is interesting when you are building a better galaxy, one friendship at a time. He closed the journal and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beings were waiting for help. Somewhere out there, the next impossible friendship was waiting to begin, and he and Bahram would be ready for it. The story of the dutiful soldier and the grateful wolf had become something bigger. It had become proof that duty and friendship could change the galaxy, and that was the greatest legacy of all.